Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. This video we're going to start looking at the Venser versus Koth duel deck, and we're going to look at the first deck from that set, which is the Venser deck, which is white and blue, which is my least favourite colour combination, but I think this deck actually does a really good job in selling itself to me, and I actually really like this deck. So let's take a look at the deck list. So we've got 23 creatures, 3 sorceries, 1 planeswalker, obviously, 5 instants, 4 enchantments, and 24 land, and we've got a whole mana curve off to the side there. So let's just dive in, start looking at the cards. So, foil face card is Venser the Sojourner. So 3 a white and a blue for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. +2 to exile a permanent you own, and then it returns to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So he does a blink effect. That's because it. I always have to do the explain the difference between flicker and blink. Flicker is it comes back straight away. Blink, it comes back slightly later in the turn, and this is a blink effect. And this is like really nice to have as a +2, right? The deck is full of permanents with ETB effects. So Venser goes so well with so much of this deck. It's like a really good build around choice, I think. His -1 is just to make everything unblockable for a turn, and that is like just like for -1 is so solid. I think is yeah, that's a really nice ability. It's white blue. We've already got kind of like a lot of evasive creatures in here anyway, but having that -1 just to make everything unblockable is really great, I think. And then his -8, which is obviously really expensive to get up to. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, exile a permanent, which is, I mean, that's absolutely backbreaking. If you that should definitely help you win if you haven't already. Obviously, he is expensive and only coming at 3 loyalty. He has got a +2 though, I suppose. So you could see him as like 5 mana for 5 loyalty, I suppose. Yeah, Venser is pretty great. I really like Venser here. It's the shame it's the only card he ever gets, because then he dies and then he gets turned into like a zombie golem mech or something by Phyrexia. It's pretty grim, which is a shame because he's a cool character. Anyway, rest of the deck. So Gale Powder Mage, which is a really fun reprint from Lorwyn. I don't know how popular this card is. I would like to imagine it is more popular because it's a card I really like, because I built a white and green flicker deck back in the day, and Gale Powder Mage was like a really key part of that, because it's like not only is it like a decently sized creature with evasion, it is a repeatable flicker effect. So I don't know how popular it is like in Commander. There's probably like way more like efficient, popular, better options these days, but I really like Gale Powder Mage. So 3 and white for 3/3 flying, which is like perfectly fine anyway. That's Phantom Monster stats. And whenever it attacks, you exile another target creature, and then it blinks back in at the beginning of the next step. So again, just like with Venser here, it's letting you get ETB effects out of all your creatures. Can't do any permanent, but like it's really good. I really like Gale Powder Mage. You got Clone, 3 and a blue. Enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, so it can always be the best creature. Obviously, with all these flicker effects, blink effects, even I should say, goes really nice. You can keep resetting it, so it is always constantly like a copy of the best thing on the board. So yeah, Clone's a nice inclusion here. Sunblast Angel, 4 and double white for a 4/5 flying. When it enters the battlefield, destroy all tapped creatures. If it had flash naturally, it would be absolutely backbreaking. As it is, it's obviously pretty good because you can drop it. After your opponent has swung out and you've maybe done a whole bunch of blocks, and then you drop this on your main phase and you kill off all this stuff. But you do have instant speed, like flicker effects and blink effects in the deck, so you can do this in response to attacks anyway. If you've already got Sunblast down and they attack, flicker Sunblast in, and then it just does it straight away. So this is also a really nice inclusion. It's a really strong ETB effect. Sphinx of Uthun, on the subject of really strong ETB effects. 5 and double blue for a 5/6 of flying. When it enters the battlefield, it does Fact or Fiction. You reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Opponent separates them into 2 piles. You put one of those piles into your hand, the other goes into your graveyard. Really fun little skill testing mini game, like Fact or Fiction effects usually are. And the fact that this is reusable is really nice, I think. So yeah, I really like Sphinx of Uthun being here. We got a Mist Meadow Witch, so 1 and an Azorius hybrid mana, so this is from Shadowmoor. So 1/1, you spend 2 white and a blue, exile a creature, and then it gets returned to the battlefield under its own control at the beginning of the next end step. Yep, standard, like blink effect. Again, just here, it's reusable, like Gale Powder Mage. At least doesn't have to attack, but you can potentially do it more than once a turn, so yeah, I like it. The fact you can do it instant speed as well is pretty good. The fact it can be opponent's creatures as well. That's why I haven't said about all these other blink effects. You can do into opponent's creatures to get them out of the way for a turn. Really good versatility in blink effects, which is why I really like them, I think. We've got a white main line here, so 1 white for a 2/2 with flash. When it ends the battlefield, you return a creature you control to owner's hand. So not quite as elegant as a blink effect. It's just returning to hand, so you have to recast again. But the fact it's got flash means that you can use this to save it from removal. And obviously, Koth's deck is mono red, so there's a whole bunch of removal in there. So this is really nice. One of the white rescue creatures from Plane of Chaos. Got Cash Raiders, 3 in double blue for a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, you return a permanent you control to owner's hand. So you do have some lands in the deck which have ETB effects as well, so you can use this on this. Use this to get them back to hand and replay them. Obviously, you can do creatures as well and get those effects. Yeah, blue. There was definitely a period in the game's history where blue was getting creatures like this, like sort of fairly regular, like kind of like decently sized for the cost. I mean, like 5 mana for a 4/4 with no evasion is obviously not wonderful, but would every turn return something to your hand to enable combo shenanigans, so like Esperzoa or like Living Tsunami, like cards like that. So yeah, Cash Raiders I think is pretty good here, and also it's actually surprisingly quite beefy. It's one of the beefier creatures in the deck. Sawtooth Loon, which is a nice reprint from Plane Shift, actually, yeah. So 2 white and a blue for a 2/2 flying. When it enters the battlefield, you have to return a white or blue creature back to owner's hand. And when it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your library. So not quite card draw, it's card selection. But yeah, I think it's doing a lot. I think at 4 mana. Obviously, if it had flash, it'd be amazing. So you could blink something. I think you can obviously you could do it self if you really wanted to. Like if you wanted just to do the draw 2 and tuck 2 away. But obviously, it's better resetting another creature, I think. Like Augury Owl, so 1 blue for a 1/1 fly when it ends battlefield Scryfall, which is just a really nice little perfect. Actually goes really nicely with obviously a bunch of card draw effects. Cryptic Annelid as well, so 3 in blue for a 1/4 when it ends the battlefield. I love this rules text. Scry 1, then Scry 2, then Scry 3. So that's really fun rules text. That the only thing is annoying that if you just Scry 1 and be like, and it's a card you want to keep, and then then doing Scry 2 and Scry 3 then feels like a little redundant maybe. But yeah, I think it's like a really fun effect, and again a good thing to repeat with blink effects. And then we've got New Invisimancer, 1 blue for a 2/1. It's unblockable, and whenever it enters the battlefield, it makes a creature unblockable until end of turn. Which is really nice, I think, because it's sort of, in a way, if you do the mental athletics or gymnastics, is it sort of has haste in the fact that it's like passing unblockability onto something, so you get to do something with an unblockable creature the turn you play it. I think it's pretty nice, and then after that, and obviously it can swing itself as well. Primal Plasma, this is another fun thing to keep coming back into play. So 3 in a blue for an XX. When it enters the battlefield, it is either a 3/3, a 2/2 with flying, or a 1/6 with defender. So it can be whatever you need it to be at whatever point in the game. I just want to say, like, the flavor text for this, I would love to see the alternate timeline where Urza and Mishra were like elemental mages instead of artificers. I think that'd be super fun. Like how an alternate universe Brothers War could have gone if it was more magic rather than machinery. I think that'd have been super cool, because that's what the flavor text is referring to, because it's from Plane of Chaos, this card, and that was all about alternate universes and stuff. We've got Jedit's Dragoons, so 5 and white for a 2/5 Vigilance. When they enter the battlefield, you gain 4 life. Kind of expensive, I think. I think probably one of the weaker cards in the deck, but it's still okay. And again, if you can find ways of blinking it so it keeps coming back in, you can gain 4 life. That's kind of hard for the Koth deck to deal with, because there's obviously a chance you just outlast it and kind of grind out a win that way, rather than immediately folding over to maybe a bunch of red burn and stuff. Core Cartographer, 3 and a white for a 2/2. When it ends the battlefield, you set your library for planes, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. This is obviously another really nice thing to blink, because it's sets up a land, which is always really nice. And then Wind Reaver. So none of these are blinky effects or ETB effects or anything. Wind Reaver is a confusing choice for me, I think. So 3 a white and a blue for 1/3 of flying. And it's kind of a bit like Morphling at home, So you pay 1 white to give it vigilance till end turn, 1 white to give it +0/+1 till end of turn, blue to switch its power and toughness till end turn, and blue to return it to hand. So obviously, what you can do is pump up its toughness really high, switch its power and toughness, and then the Koth deck doesn't have a lot to deal with flyers, so then you switch this power and toughness, and then it's a super glass cannony flyer. if it is then threatened by burn, you can pay blue to bounce it back to hand. So I guess, in that regard, it is okay as like an alternative like win condition, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. I was never like super taken by Wind Reaver as a card. I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's fine in terms of like rare white blue flyers that were available at the time. I guess it's okay. Ironically, I like Sky Spirit like a lot more. One white and a blue for a 2/2 with flying and first strike. It's from Tempest block, and I just think it's very, just obviously very straightforward and elegant. It's just 3 mana for a 2/2 flying first strike. I think that's just lovely. I think it's perfect. And then Wall of Denial, the big old Wall of Nope. One a white and a blue for 0/8 with Defender, Flying, and Shroud. So it can't be targeted by anything. Obviously, it's super tough. So this is actually like a real pain for the Koth deck to deal with because it doesn't really have a way of dealing with this. It doesn't obviously have like sacrifice effects. Yeah, if this comes down, it's gonna stay down. It's it's a real pain to deal with. Such a good defensive creature in white blue. And then just a few other like blue creatures here to tie us out. So Minamo Sightbender, 1 the blue for 1/2. You pay X and tap to make a creature with power X or less unblockable this turn. Actually goes really nicely on the Wind Reaver, I suppose, because then you would do this effect when it's only got power 1 and then pump it up and then switch its power and toughness, but then it's still unblockable. So that's like an option, I suppose. But again, it just helps in like in this whole like white blue evasive creatures thing. Obviously goes really nicely with Scroll Thief because it's got really low power. 2 and a blue for 1/3. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, which is always nice to have like this kind of like thieving magpie ability. And then 2 Slith Striders, 1 and double blue for 1/1. Whenever it becomes blocked, you draw a card, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So is this kind of like real bad choice, like do you block it and give me a card, or do you let it through and it gets stronger? So yeah, these are really two good effects, I think. And it's always nice to see like one of the weird little sliths. At time of recording, Modern Horizons 3 has been fully spoiled. We actually got new slith for the first time in like literal decades, so that was exciting. I wonder if they'll make a comeback in some way. And then the weirdest card I think in the whole deck, because it's so just out of nowhere and it's such a weird old like reprint, like such a random choice of card, is Coral Fighters, which I think is from like Visions or Weatherlight or something. It's definitely like around that time period. So 1 to blue for a 1/1. When it attacks and isn't blocked, you look at the top card defending player's library, and then you can put it on the bottom of their library. So you just like fate seal them. It's it's just a weird choice. I don't really know why it's in here, honestly. Obviously, like you can, if it gets through and it isn't blocked, you potentially lock them out of, a good draw, I suppose. But like, just having one of them in here, and like, it's such a weird old card to include. I wonder why this was chosen out of all the potential like blue uncommons that could have been here in its place instead. Anyway. It's got Path to Exile here with lovely new artwork. I think this is new artwork at least. So 1 white mana, instant. You exile a creature and its controller search their library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle their library. Being obviously to exile anything for only 1 white mana is obviously super good. Yeah, you give them a basic land drop, but like that's probably better than letting them keep their creature, which you've just managed to exile for only a single white mana. So yeah, really nice inclusion. And then 2 Preordain. This is quite funny because it's a banned card, I think, still in Modern. So 1 blue, and you just scry 2 and then draw a card. Looks so innocent, but it's super. It's obviously really like an efficient play that you just get like this kind of card selection before drawing. Really good. And again here with like new artwork as well, which is a bit of a draw for it as well. Then Vanish into Memory, which is like a really interesting card actually. So 2 white and a blue. You exile a creature, you draw cards equal to its power, and then at the beginning of the next upkeep, your next upkeep even. So you could do this on your turn on an opponent's creature, and then it's out for like a whole round because it comes back to start your upkeep. Then it gets returned to the battlefield under owner's control, and then you discard cards equal to its toughness. So it's a really interesting card, and unfortunately, there's no cards really in either deck that have like a really high power and a really low toughness to make this really good. But even if you do it on something, like a 4/4, like those Cash Raiders, that's still like draw 4, and then potentially like, you've got a whole round to cast whatever you've just drawn, and then you're discarding 4 at the start of the start of next upkeep. So yeah, I think Vanish into Memory is a really interesting card. Honestly, I don't have much experience of playing it, but like because even if you view it as just a draw and discard spell, then you're also still exiling something for like a whole turn. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting card, honestly. Angelic Shield is not as interesting. It's a lot more straightforward. White and blue enchantment just gives your creatures +0/+1, and you can sacrifice it to return the creature to owner's hands. Just do a I was going to say it's a rescue effect. It's not a rescue effect. It is just a straight up unsummon. So that's actually pretty cool. And then 2 overrules, X, white, and blue, counter target spell unless its controller plays X, and you gain X life, which is just the most classically like white-blue counter spell I can think of, really. Oblivion Ring, we all know what Oblivion Ring does. Just exile something until it leaves the battlefield. Yep. Sigil of Sleep, this is kind of like a spicy little reprint from Urza's block. So 1 blue, aura goes on a creature. Whenever an enchanted creature deals damage to a player, return a creature that player controls to owner's hand. Super, super nice, like a reusable unsummon effect. You've got so many evasive creatures in the deck as well. This could really, really mess up like the opponent's tempo if you just keep bouncing something every turn. You're swinging with like, like that Invisimancer who's unblockable. Just keep swinging that and just like keep bouncing a creature every turn. It's like a really mount up and to be a real problem. And then Steel of the Godhead, 2, and Azorius Hybrid for one of these God auras, I guess, from Shadowmoor. So its aura goes on a creature. As long as the enchant creature is white, it gets +1/+1 on lifelink. As long as it's blue, it has +1/+1 and is unblockable. So if it's white and blue, it gets both those effects, which is really, really strong, like being +2/+2 lifelink and unblockable. You don't have really like a huge number of like multicolored creatures in the deck. You have some. It's actually probably best you don't have too many because then if you could reliably get this on a multicolored creature, like there's not really much the Koth deck can do about it. But yeah, it's a really nice aura. I think we used to. I've got so much like emotional damage from like all these like god auras back in Shadowmoor times because like it was just all we played at my game shop back in the day. Just every deck was just like 4 of like the single mana hybrid creature, and then it was like 4 of the god auras. Man, I'd like Nip Gwillian and then Double Edges and Divinity, like legitimate emotional damage to me. Anyway, moving on. Just rambling about Shadowmoor cards there. And then Evoke Existence to exile artifacts or enchantments. Yep. Safe Passage to prevent damage. Yep. And that's fine. That's it. And then lands. So we've got Floodplain as a fetch land, sort of like a budget fetch land, I suppose. Enters the battlefield tapped, you can tap, sacrifice it, set your library for a plains or island, put it onto the battlefield. It doesn't have to be a basic, which is kind of nice. And then shuffle, but I don't think you have non-basic plains or islands in here, from what I remember. No, you don't. I thought you did. Azorius Chancery, which is just the standard like white-blue guild hall, so it comes in, it bounces a land, and you can replay it. That's fine. New Benalia comes into play tapped, and when it comes in, you scry 1. So this is actually quite a nice thing to do with maybe like Cash Raiders, something like you could replay in this and keep getting a scry 1, I suppose. Soaring Sea Cliff, which ends the battlefield tapped when it comes in, gives a creature flying until end turn. Which again is a nice thing you could do on like Cash Raiders, keep like maybe replaying this and keep turning it into a 4/4 flyer, maybe I suppose. Yeah, it's not the worst thing to do, I suppose. Sajiri Refuge, which is the white blue like Gainland or like the older Gainland from Zendikar, and then 11 islands and 7 plains. So yeah, overall, I think this deck's actually put together pretty well. There's a few cards in here which I'm not super keen on, like the what was it, the Coral Fighters, like the weird old Merfolk card, and like Wind Reaver. Wind Reaver's okay actually. I've sort of talked myself into thinking Wind Reaver's all right. But I think on the whole, it's got like a really good, solid theme in here of just blink effects and ETB effects, returning stuff to hand, like recasting. I think it's just a really solid like theme to build around. So yeah, I actually really like this one. And say Venser is such a cool planeswalker anyway. Like all his abilities are really great. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this one. So I hope you join me next time when I look at the Koth deck, see how it matches up against this one. But if you've got any thoughts or comments or stories or opinions about this deck or any of the cards in it, do stick a comment down below and I'll give those a read. But I'll be back next time to look at the Koth deck. So until then, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.